Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Bear Chats. My name is Scott Cordischi, and we are happy to be joined today by the new head women's basketball coach at Brown University, Monique LeBlanc. Monique, how are you?
Hey, Scott. Good morning. I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me on today.
Well, congratulations. We're thrilled to have you at Brown, and we certainly look forward to your years on the bench leading our women's basketball program.
Yeah, I'm beyond thrilled. It's such a special place. I know I'm preaching to the choir here with you and our listeners. So I'm just really grateful to be, part of the community now and excited to get started.
And before we get into your coaching background, I understand you have some ties to the state of Rhode Island, do you not?
Yes, I do. Yep. Grew up in Cumberland, Rhode Island. And it's been funny because, some of my coaching friends who have reached out that, coach in Rhode Island or in the area, have said, where do you think you're living? All those questions. And I've actually texted them back and said, well, you live down there, let me know about the school systems and such. And they all think that's hilarious that me being a Rhode Island native is asking, them about those suggestions. But I try to remind everybody that when I left home in 98 for Bucknell, I never returned. So, I haven't lived in Rhode Island for a while, but I'm certainly excited to get back.
Well, we're happy to have you back here in Little Rhodey, as they like to call it.
Yes, yes.
Coach, you've spent the last 9 seasons at head coach at Merrimack College, and you really did a fantastic job there. 129 wins, coming off a 20-win season, ironically, in your first year in Division I. I guess my first question to you is, what do you attribute your program's success to in your 9 years at Merrimack?
Yeah, I think that the first year was difficult. We really had to overcome just growing and improving in that first year and doing it the right way. But there was some good success early on in those next couple of years. And I think that's really important, is to have those smaller pockets of progress and success where, the team and the supporters, the fans, the alums, everybody can get excited about the growth and get behind it. And that just snowballs, and it really helps everything. It helps the recruiting, the mindset, the mentality, the atmosphere. So, I think that also the NE10 is such a great conference. And so a lot of people have mentioned our jump into Division I and having a great year. And before the year, when I was asked, how do you feel about going Division I this year? And, what are your expectations? I would always say I didn't have expectations because it was unknown. All of our opponents were new, but that I felt really confident in our recruiting and the talent on our team, and that we've played against really great competition in the NE10 and coached against really great coaches. There's Hall of Fame coaches in that league and coaches that have, been doing this a lot longer than me, and they're very good. So lots of great lead up into being a Division I program.
Well, and then what success in your first year in Division I, very similar to the Merrimack men's basketball program. And I understand a staple for both programs is you guys play a tenacious zone defense.
Yeah, we do. And it's fun, because we can both, provide each other some feedback or more so even just some kudos on, how one another's zones looked in the game that night. And there's a couple of things that we do differently in our zones, but a lot of the principles are the same, and the way that we're trying to play it with energy and be aggressive. So it was fun to work together and have Joe as my counterpart.
Coach, is it 2-3, 1-3-1 matchup zone? What kind of zone do you like to play?
Yeah, it is a 2-3. Sometimes we start in a tandem set, so and we start our forwards a little bit higher, so it can appear as a 1-3-1. But it is actually a 2-3.
Okay. And how about offensively, Coach? What's your philosophy on that end of the floor?
Yeah, well, of course, everybody wants to score, and everybody wants to play fast. That's really been trending in the last few years. You hear people talking about their teams. We're going to play fast. And by no means do I want to play slow. However, I want to play fast. I want to be smart. I want to be an opportunistic team that really understands when to push it. We plan to push it all the time, but I guess understands when to take a quick shot and when to wait until we get a great shot if we have a great shot quickly, let's take it. So in general, I think you'll see that our philosophy is going to be to share the basketball. We really want to play a great brand of team basketball, where everybody's involved. I think that makes everybody really want to work hard for one another. So lots of reversing the ball, lots of cutting, lots of movement, and we're planning to shoot a lot of threes. So you'll be seeing that as well.
And you shot the ball very well from three this past season, and you transitioned to Division I. In fact, I think you were almost 10 percentage points higher than your opponent from beyond the arc.
Yeah, so I think, I talk a lot about offense and defense going hand in hand. And, I don't consider myself just a defensive coach or just an offensive coach. I think defense and offense, are very tightly related. And so I think that's an area where, we could be great at shooting the ball, but if we're letting our opponents also shoot the ball well, then, we're just playing even there. And same thing defensively. Like if we're just going to be great at taking away threes, but we don't shoot or make any threes, then that's a wash too. So we definitely look for those opportunities statistically where we can separate ourselves and our opponent. And that was definitely one of the key ones.
You mentioned playing at Bucknell where you were a captain. And ironically, tell us a little bit about this. When you graduated from Bucknell, you didn't necessarily envision yourself pursuing a career in coaching.
Yeah, I didn't right off the bat, because I think that, I had just spent 4 years as a double major in math and econ. And I thought, I feel really compelled to go use this somewhere that makes sense for math and economics majors. And also, the culture when you're a senior is that like you and your teammates, your other friends, everybody's getting jobs and they're interviewing in the fall semester. And by the end of that fall semester, they're signing on with different companies. And I went down that path as well, and I did that. But then in the spring, once season was over, and as a senior, you kind of find yourself like, what do I do now? I'm so used to having a schedule and going to workouts and things. The reality set in that, am I just not going to be involved in basketball anymore? And that hit hard. And my coach had even joked with me about, well, why don't you stay on here as, one of our GAs, or, and then like there was nothing really open, but just even her throwing that out there to me was like, wait, is that a possibility? So I knew that it might be something that I'd go after. And not surprisingly, it took about 5 months and then I was back into basketball.
So let me ask you this question now. I know you want to hit the ground running, but these are unique circumstances that we're all living through right now. So how do you go about the process of putting together a coaching staff? Does recruiting still need to be finished off for this coming fall, or is the incoming recruiting class all set? Kind of take us through this process if you can.
Yeah, well, you're so right that it's such a unique time, unprecedented. So there's no roadmap for me to follow on like how to navigate as a brand new head coach, during a pandemic. So, I think everybody's doing their best. And right now you mentioned putting a coaching staff together, and that is definitely something that is super important for every team. For me, I'm spending a lot of time talking to our players, all one-on-one. And then, next week we're going to get on as a team, but I'm really enjoying getting to know them and listen to them. And I want to make sure that our staff really reflects all the needs of the program, and that we're going to really hit every area that we need to hit as a coaching staff. And I have some great people in mind I'm very excited about, and I think they're going to really be great for the team and great for Brown. But I think regarding the incoming class, we are all set. So this year's roster is good to go. We have 6 incoming players, and I've spoken with half of them. The other half is today. And so I'm looking forward to, continuing to get to know them. And that's different because, typically you have the entire, junior and senior year of their high school experience where you're building that relationship and you're part of that recruiting experience with them. So, now we're going to try to condense that into a short time, the get to know you process. And, so then we can get on the court. And as you said, hit the ground running. But right now I know that all of our players are still finishing school. Like they're at home and it's easy to forget that they're still in school. So, the next couple of weeks, I really want to let them focus on that and finishing strong in the semester. Although everything in me wants to say like, hey, I'm your new coach and let's start talking about us and our team and our vision. We'll get to that. So I'm going to let them finish the semester strong and keep their focus there. But then I think it's going to be exciting to be creative and find some ways that we can connect as a team and really start talking about next season and getting excited for that.
Coach, I know your team played at Brown this past November, but what, if anything, did you know about Brown before you received that phone call from Jack Hayes?
Well, yeah, I mean, as you mentioned earlier in the show here, growing up in Cumberland, I mean, it's Brown. It's a very proud spot of Rhode Island, and it's a place that, as a high school student, we went down to Thayer Street and hung out because of course we did. That was the cool place to be, and so I've always known of Brown as just a really unique place. But I'll be honest with you, I didn't know nearly as much as I knew after speaking with Jack and preparing for the interview. And that was awesome. I loved how much I learned from all the coaches that I met with in the interview process, from Jack, and from doing research and talking to people that, were more familiar with Brown than myself. And that was what made me so interested in the position. Was there was so much I didn't know about Brown. And I'm so excited now with all of the knowledge I have, and I have so much more to learn, but that it's going to be a great fit.
And then final question, Coach, what can you tell us about the Ivy League or your familiarity at all with the Ivy League? I know you played Dartmouth and Brown last year on your schedule at Merrimack, but it's a very competitive women's college basketball conference. You probably know that Penn and Princeton have traditionally been at or near the top. What can you tell us about your knowledge of the Ivy League? And more importantly, how do you get this program at Brown to compete for Ivy titles with not just Penn and Princeton, but all the other 7 teams in the league?
Yeah. So my experience from being a player, obviously familiar with the Ivy League, because there's that connection between the Patriot League and the Ivy League. And back when I was a student athlete, the Patriot League still had an Ivy League model in terms of how they did their financial aid and not being a scholarship league. But from that time as a player to now, I've really seen the Ivy League grow in terms of their strength as a basketball league. And that's really exciting to jump in now at this point in time. The Ivy League is such a high level of basketball. And so that's really exciting. I think that helps with recruiting, is that like, you're not just selling the Ivy League opportunity and degree, which in itself is incredible. It's like you're selling a very, very good and very high level of basketball. And I think that like the top student athletes in the country can be really excited about that. So how do we improve and find our way into that top 4, into that mix for an Ivy championship? I think we have to really focus on not like, how are we going to beat Princeton or how are we going to beat Penn? I think we need to focus on like, everybody is important. We need to want to beat whoever's at the bottom of the league, just like we want to beat anybody at the top of the league. And we really have to focus on Brown. I think that's really important, is that we're going to be able to get a sense of who we are as a team, and what does it mean if we start here and get here, and we're going to have a sense of what that is that we are trying to get to. So I think as much as we can measure ourselves against ourselves and knowing that we're making progress and moving in the right direction, there's so much that goes into preparing to win a basketball game, that I think we just really want to keep the focus right in house and work on improving.
Well, Coach, congratulations once again on your hire. We're thrilled to have you at Brown University and can't wait to see your teams out on the floor this winter.
Thrilled to be here. Can't wait to meet you and everybody in person whenever that is. But in the meantime, I really appreciate these opportunities, and just looking forward to getting more connected.
That is Monique LeBlanc, the new head women's basketball coach here at Brown University, our guest on this week's edition of Bear Chats.